Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. My name is Paul Bryan. I'm here with my amazing co-host Tania. How are you doing today, Tania?
I'm really wonderful, Paul. Thanks for inviting me today. I don't know. I'm always here, but thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to have our beautiful friends from Astalty with us today. We've got Jonathon and James. And I think if you in the NDIS sector, you would have had to be living under a rock if you hadn't heard of Astalty, but you might not have had the pleasure of meeting their co-founders. So we have James.
Yes.
James looked after the product development and engineering at Astalty. He has a proven track record of delivering innovative digital solutions for small and medium businesses, both in Australia and overseas for a number of years. He founded his own software engineering company and since has assisted multiple businesses in streamlining their operations by creating custom solutions that address real-world challenges. We then have Jonathon. Jonathon looks after marketing and business development at Astalty. He's passionate about driving results through creative and innovative thinking. Through Astalty's solutions, he hopes that businesses will be able to operate more efficiently. Jonathon has a keen interest in business and in 2021 won the Lake Macquarie Young Business Leaders Award and is also a NDIS provider as well. So welcome both Jonathon and James to the podcast.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you for having us. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
Awesome. First of all, I would like to point out that you guys are beautiful, as Tania said. Quite very amazing looking gentlemen here. You guys have built a software, which I'm going to be honest, I think has developed a bit of a cult following. You guys have got people who are so passionate about what you do, but I think that's really a testimony to how involved you are with your clients about developing software that they're actually using to a really, really high standard. So congratulations. I think you guys have done really well. Has that been like on purpose?
Yeah, I think the amount of hours that John and I have spent on the phone talking about the NDIS and Astalty over the past 6 or 7 years has certainly been a contributing factor to, I think, just being able to understand the NDIS as much as we possibly can and the problems that software actually needs to solve. And I feel like we've done a good job at that. Yeah,
amazing. Hey, look, I get to talk to a lot of providers and many focus on fixing the surface level issues. What's right in their face at the time is what they sort of focus on rather than looking at the root cause. And a lot of stuff really wraps around the systems and the software they're using in their business. What are some of the most common symptoms you see in the NDIS sector that could be solved with the right software?
I think a big one is around access to information is one, and providers are very quick to jump on implementing spreadsheets or just another tool into their long list of subscriptions, and I think it comes from very reactive decisions that are made for things that happen quite quickly because NDIS businesses can be pretty fast paced, and I feel like if business owners were able just to take a step back, ask themselves a few more questions, they'd probably be able to uncover what's the actual cause of what's bubbling up here. And the solution may be a software or it may be a spreadsheet. But I think, just taking a little bit more time to make those decisions, they would be able to, solve those problems much, much better.
I definitely think the reactiveness is a big thing, and especially with how many new business owners come into the space with no prior experience running a business. And they're just in firefighter mode because they don't know any better as well. So I think similar to what you said, James, software could solve it, but I feel like proper planning and having the know of, all right, this is how we're going to tackle this problem. We're going to do our due diligence. We're going to spend some time on it rather than, cool, let's fix it for today and then let's move on. And I feel like that's such a huge problem for business owners, not only NDIS business owners. We face that problem, James. I faced it as well in the early days of running my NDIS business. And it's not until you take a step back and take time to plan that you can really solve those problems.
I think it sounds really simple, but literally just taking a bit more time to make a decision. And if you need to make a decision quickly and implement a stopgap as a reactive measure, consciously telling yourself that you're going to come back and revisit that to put in a proper solution. And then I think bringing in stakeholders from within your business and asking open-ended questions. How do you feel about this? What do you think we should have, could have done better? How do you think we could solve this? Rather than kind of saying, should we do A or B? When you ask your team, and we even see this at Astalty, more open-ended questions, I think you start to uncover the deeper problem much quicker. And it's not until you can truly understand the problem that you should even start to think about a solution in the first place. And I think a lot of business owners don't actually understand what problem it is that they're trying to solve when they go and implement a process or a software.
I like that idea of just coming back after the fact and having that reflection of, okay, we went through X, it resulted in a messy situation. What could we have done better? And we used to always do this in the lead up to public holidays. Funnily enough, we're coming up to Easter long weekend, right? So, scheduling on call, who's working, who's not working, following a on-call period, historically for us, it's always been a bit of a difficult period because there's a bunch of errors that happened over the break that could have been avoided. So it's coming back in and then, all right, for the next period of time, how are we going to tackle the next time that we have a huge, stretch of public holidays? And what are we going to do to make sure that everyone's communicated with? What are we going to do to make sure that everyone knows who's getting support? How are we going to make sure that everyone's got funding and stuff like that? And just really, deep diving on the problem and figuring out what can we do to improve next time around.
Yeah, and I think definitely getting part of the team involved is a big piece of it, for sure. Getting additional context, boots on the ground, or maybe that is the business owner in some circumstances, and just listening for a little while before, making a decision.
Looking ahead, what innovations in software and technology do you think will have the biggest impact on solving the core challenges in the NDIS sector?
I think a big one, and again, it might seem simple, but building software to solve workflows rather than shipping a big feature list. And what that means is actually understanding, all right, within an NDIS business, take getting a service agreement signed as a simple example. That sounds simple, but if you actually go into a business and understand how that goes from start to finish, there are a lot of steps involved. And building software around that whole workflow, which I think we've done, again, quite well. But other systems, they simply throw a list of features at you and say, here are all the tools, but they don't really put them together for you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big one. And then, of course, implementing AI to have, being able to make decisions and review past decisions as well to see where improvements could be made. I think that'll be big, of course, over the next couple of years. Well, probably within the next couple of months with the way that it's all going.
Very quickly.
Yeah,
I think AI is huge. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen any of the stuff that AI agents have been doing and implementing on people's behalf, working for you and executing tasks with on their own is really, really exciting. How close we are to having that sort of stuff in software and in NDIS software specifically. Who knows? James might be able to answer that one, but I think that's huge, especially from a compliance standpoint. If you could have an AI agent built into your software that can send, automatic reminders to the management team to complete their compliance tasks on a monthly basis. So you haven't got to go in and manually, check and then email every single person. In terms of complexity, those tasks are pretty straightforward. It's who has or hasn't done their task this month? Let's send them an email. And if an AI agent can handle that and automate that for you and free you up, to do whatever else in the business, focusing on providing great services, I think that's going to be huge. And who knows where that sort of thing ends in terms of what AI agents are capable of. But I think that is going to be a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I'm really excited about, and this is something that's already available with some software platforms, is the integration with the NDIS product pays, and being able to have available information on participant budgets, especially if you're a support coordinator who needs oversight over participant funding. I think that's going to be huge as well. Not having to go to a plan manager's portal, download the statement, review that. If you've got information in real time, I think that's a lot more
amazing,
powerful than having to go somewhere else and get that data. And it's only as relevant as the time that you get it. So by the time you're checking it, that data could have changed. Those budgets could be, overutilized or exhausted or something like that. So having real-time participant data in your software, I feel like is going to be very powerful for providers.
Absolutely.
And duplication is a massive problem we see, and we see this all the time at Astalty. People saying, "Hey, can we export ABC data?" And we, generally always follow up with, "Why do you need it exported?" "Oh, we want to copy it from here into another spreadsheet, and then we send that off and we review that at a weekly meeting." Why not just log into Astalty and view it all in real time? And then that way, by the time, like Jono said, you've downloaded an export, it's out of date almost immediately. So trying to bring all of those processes into kind of one platform, whether that's Astalty or in other industries, I think having everybody have one source of truth with access to information is really important. Because when data's getting copied from one spot to another, you've got human error, you've got confusion. What version are you looking at versus somebody else? And having everything just fed from a single source of truth, would be massive.
That idea of those inefficiencies is costing businesses so much. I mean, people are employing staff to do things that software can handle for them, and we've seen it all the time that most businesses are using their software at like 20% capacity when it can do so much more for them. What are some of those, I guess, to highlight for some of our listeners, what are some of those inefficiencies that you're seeing pretty regularly that something like Astalty would solve rather than having to be so manual? And you mentioned the meeting minutes there, or the meeting notes. What are the type of inefficiencies have you seen that software can solve for us?
I think the first one is actually being aware of what your software can do. So many people we speak to on the phone and they say, "Oh, I've just run into, my team keeps going over the allocated funding for a participant coordination." And we say, "Have you looked at notifications for utilization?" "Oh, I wasn't aware that it did that." And maybe that's something that software providers need to be better at as well. But a lot of software platforms now will have customer success teams you can reach out to and say, "Hey, I just want to review where we're at. Can we jump on a call and we have a look at their account and see what features they're actually utilizing?" So I think just being aware of the features and the solutions that your software has in the first place, because if you don't know tools in your toolkit, you're never going to be able to use it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, with so much new tech coming out, I feel like you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice not, putting the feelers out there, seeing what's available. How far has tech come? You spoke about minutes before. I'm a Google user, so Gemini and its ability to take minutes, create action items, and then send everyone a copy of the minutes is extremely powerful. Now, Tanya, if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure that's part of what standard does that come under? Governance, being able to take and store minutes.
Governance definitely falls under governance, and then also information management.
I believe she said yes in several words.
In robot. So, yeah, I mean, that one's a huge time saver. We used to just have an administration person sit in the meeting just to take minutes.
Yeah.
Just to take minutes and send it out. So what's that? If you're doing a meeting every single week or every fortnight, an hour or two out of their time that the business is spending on capturing information. That can be completely automated now. I feel like that's a very, very basic use of AI. So I think like if you're a business owner, you should absolutely be looking into some of that entry level stuff to implement in your business.
Yeah, and even some of the more important stuff like invoicing, for example, I would have spoken to at least a dozen or 2 dozen regularly large businesses that do scheduling that are not customers of ours yet. And you kind of say, oh, how do you do your invoicing? Oh, we just add that to Xero manually.
Yeah.
Like most software platforms will be able to handle your invoicing, but for whatever reason, they don't want to utilize that. Maybe they're not sure that it exists or that it does that. But yeah, just trying to streamline anything that can be automated by software where you're currently employing somebody to do it definitely needs to be looked at.
I think it's amazing that so many businesses talk about, the tight profit margins and, running some months at loss, some months at profit, and looking at how they can, do more services in the space, but then don't utilize software as much as possible because, for every, hour that you're paying someone to do something that they could be doing a higher level task. Like if you're paying, your service manager to double check the roster, or if you're paying, your GM to go through and send out those meeting minutes, they have a higher level of tasks that they can be doing that software or automations or AI can be handling. It's amazing what Astalty, I've seen the things that Astalty is doing and how you're working with your clients. What other, new things on the horizon could we be seeing? We've talked about AI, but when it comes to maybe Astalty specifically, what are you guys sort of looking at as the next big things? If you can give us any little bits of information that might be juicy for our listeners.
Well, I think it's no secret we're building scheduling. We've been going pretty hard on that for a while. And we've been pretty much full-time on that. But at the same time, we're exploring other ways we can streamline things. We've got, the mandatory registration stuff happening soon. So how can we streamline compliance? Astalty ourselves, we are ISO certified, so we have a good idea about what compliance looks like and having to conform to a standard. Jono's obviously an expert, and Tania around the NDIS standard specifically. So how can you manage compliance? Of course, AI, we're always looking at, and I feel like we'll have some exciting stuff there to announce in the very near future. And then I think once scheduling is released, a common challenge that I hear from NDIS business owners is communication between the support workers and the team in the office and the participants. So implementing features in Astalty that kind of helps teams communicate with one another, whether that be in a SIL home or community access, and just streamlining the whole communication process. That's, in short, what the next little bit of our roadmap looks like. I'm sure there'll be some other exciting features that we build between now and then, but yeah.
Last sort of main question I've got for you is, what somebody who's listening to this right now, they're a provider, they're looking at, there's lots of software on the market, and there's lots of things that they're doing manually. They're probably in the midst of, organizing their teams, and while we're having this conversation, they're trying to sort out a roster or something like that at the moment. Yeah, brilliant. Awesome, guys. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today and highlighting some of those things that people will be looking at in regarding to the systems and their software. Probably scaring the pants off a few people around AI and what that can do, because that's always amusing to see. So yeah, thanks so much for jumping in today, giving us a bit of insight. We'll be putting your details up in the show notes. So if anybody wants to learn more about Astalty, jump in and have a look at that. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, and for everybody else, next week we have got our April recap, and so we'd love to have you join us for the next episode. Please go on and check out the episodes we've got available for you. There's so many resources there. Thanks for joining us today, guys, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.